Look, I love The Devil Wears Prada. I remember watching it on repeat on HBO back when it was on Channel 16 years ago. And I always got something different out of the story depending on the age, which, give me a sec, let me note my age real quick. When I first saw this movie when I was 13 years old, I was left with the idea of it does matter how you dress. And you need to have some kind of sense of style if you want to be attractive, which when you're 13 years old and you want to have a girlfriend, I mean, yeah, you kind of have to learn how to dress. Now, when I saw it when I was 18, I kind of thought, oh, is that what college is going to be like? That's what my life's going to be like after college, right? Trying to find internships, get my first job, and whatnot. When I was 23, I saw it and I wondered, is this what my first job opportunity is going to look like? Trying to find my internship, trying to make my bones. Now, I can honestly say after not seeing this movie in years, I can look back on this film now as a relatively old man in comparison to where Andy was in the start of her journey. And to start, they do a really good job of the idea of a fish out of water for her story. Someone who is not the biggest fashion forward person being thrust into the world of designer brands and not being a size 2. And look, if there's one thing we can question about this film, it is the body shaming. The fact that they body shamed Anne Hathaway for not being a size 2 or size 4 or for being a size 6. Like, come on, guys. Come on. Now, obviously, you can argue it's an element of its time. That's fair. I don't want to harp too much on it, but I do want to reflect on that part. We can do without the body shaming. I'm just saying. It would be disingenuous if I didn't bring it up. But speaking of disingenuous, can we mention how crappy Andy's friends are? Like, they really, really suck. But okay, let's talk about the learning curve and how to live life fast and think on your feet. That's something that Andy's really introduced to. And as someone who's worked a high-pressure job, no, that's true. Unfortunately, when you're thrown out into the working world, you need to learn how to walk and talk at the same time. It's very fast and quick-paced. Not as crazy as this job, but that is part of it. Now, let's set things off with also not the most amazing sidekick, but maybe the best supporting character in this whole film, Nigel, played masterfully by Stanley Tucci, who can do no wrong in introducing Andy into the world more ways than one. While he attempts to rein in Andy, he ends up showing her what runway can be to people. It's a beacon of hope to a lot of people. Maybe a kid trying to hide this magazine from his dad and his brothers, lying, saying that he's going to soccer practice when in reality he's taking sewing lessons. And I want to add this right now. Love your kids no matter what. Andy and her father have a frightening familiar conversation I feel like I've had a million times when it comes to the idea of having to pay your dues, work hard, do the grunt work the shitty hours, the long hours for no pay. Or for really crap pay, if I'm being honest with you. I remember being told that if you can survive enterprise for a year, you can have multiple job opportunities, and that was true. Andy also killing herself and trying her best is painfully relatable to someone young being broken into the real world of what the work life can be. And I'm not saying you should take the abuse 24/7, but the idea that your good work will go unacknowledged, yeah, that's legitimate. As is the makeover. Now, look, my parents told me something when I was very young, and it's unfortunately, it's very true, as wrong as it may sound. When you dress nicer, when you use proper diction, when you carry yourself properly, people tend to treat you better. And I mean, that's true. That's a lesson I'm going to teach my son. It's a harsh reality of the way things are, but the way you present yourself matters. Now, let's talk about and I rarely use this word, but I'm going to pull in synthetic sports here. This iconic montage of Andy walking through New York and getting what I would argue is a smirk of approval from Miranda. Also, going back real quick, fuck Andy's friends. These are some jerk-ass people. Like, these are some mean people. Andy's trying her best to get a foothold and share gifts, but instead of support, she gets judgment for drinking the Kool-Aid from her chef of a boyfriend. And look, I mean this as disrespectfully as possible. Fuck this guy. Now, after walking in on Miranda having a massive fight with her husband, Andy's given the impossible task of finding a copy of the manuscript for the next Harry Potter book, and somehow she finds it because, yeah, rich people get to have things that we normally can't. Anyway, Andy is left with another personal challenge when she's forced to work at the 11th hour on Nate's birthday. And look, I'll give him this one crumb she should have called to tell him, but man, still, you should be supportive of your wife, of your girlfriend. Like, I'm just saying. Eventually, Emily is hit by a car, and thus Andy is set to go to Paris. Although I guess technically Andy was already going to go to Paris instead of Emily, but regardless, right? Like they have friction, right? They're butting heads now. They were like weird friends, but whatever. Anyway, this is the part when it becomes a question of personal moral standards and all that really comes into play. The commitment to one's moral code clashing with Andy's desire to climb the ladder and be a part of the industry, or at the very least, a journalist, but also, hey, the higher up you get, the better you become. Now, while in Paris, Andy does everything she can for Miranda, but there is also a moment where she sees the very real cost of what it means to be a workaholic and completely immerse herself in a job when she walks in on Miranda after a good cry and discovers that she's getting a divorce. Andy offers to clear her day, to clear her schedule, but Miranda says, why would we do that? She has this toxicity of the show must go on. Instead of taking the time to process everything, Miranda keeps the walls up with eyes on the prize and an unhealthy obsession with nothing is wrong, everything is okay, we need to keep going forward. And I'm not really sure if that tells Andy to live more or if that this is her cautionary tale yet. But here we go. After sleeping with the mentalist, nice, Andy discovers the plot to replace Miranda at Runway. She attempts to warn her, but they're all for naught. Miranda just says, I will take care of it. Now, at the party, to crown her replacement, Miranda plays 4D chess and remains in control of Runway, but at the cost of a promotion she had initially promised Nigel. When Andy tries to call her out for it, Miranda remains steadfast that she did the right thing, that the world does in fact revolve around her, and that maybe, just maybe, Andy is like her. But this is not the beautiful moment Miranda thinks it is. She thought it would be. It's sort of a wake-up call that Andy needs. She doesn't want to head down the path of being the cynical person who scares everybody. A woman that is a perfectionist and ruthless to a point where she loses people in her life. While Andy does leave, Miranda does still give her a glowing recommendation and a glowing review. That, tied with Andy making amends with Emily, leaves us on a great note of self-reflection and discovery. Andy is one of the few characters that is truly able to redeem themselves after stepping foot in hell. I mean, the fashion industry. This film is, and I, again, dread using this word, but I think it's accurate, iconic in more ways than one. And it's only a surprise that it took this long for there to be a sequel. I don't know if there's a sequel to the book. I know The Devil Wears Prada is initially a book. I guess there's a sequel. I don't know. Either way, I'm set to go see the movie this Friday. One of the rare times since Ollie's been born that we're going to premiere. Me, Nikki, my mom, both my sisters, and my niece are looking forward to it. Yeah, I really am. I really like this movie, The Devil Wears Prada. Now, as far as the grading is concerned, I'll give it like an 8 out of 10. It is a great movie that I do revisit every so often, and I always enjoy the rewatch. That's it. What do you think of The Devil Wears Prada? Let us know down below. What are you looking forward to in the sequel? And we'll catch you all next time. See you, everybody.